couple of weeks ago, my friend sent me a message letting me know that apparently Impending Doom, unlike the rumors that are out there, is actually still kicking and alive, though it looks a little bit differently than it did in the past. There's a number of people playing this. If you look on PoE Ninja, there's about 50 people or so playing Impending Doom right now. I also want to call attention to the version that Jung Roan posted about 2 weeks ago that I thought was really cool, where he used modern Svalin for the defenses in addition to a Sublime Vision. This is more the traditional version that's out there, but I made a number of changes to kind of make it fit what I prefer. I'll just put it that way. I solved a lot of problems that I found with the versions that are out there. I really am happy with the way that this has come together. So yeah, we'll just demonstrate what this looks like. So this is a tier 17 map. Hopefully the March for Death doesn't kill me, but as you can see, it's, kind of a moderate roll right here, nothing crazy on either side. What is this? This is Impending Doom Pathfinder. If you played Impending Doom in the past, the most popular version was Crouching Tunas from a few leagues ago. And what happened was the Awakened Spell Cascade was changed. So it's much harder to make things overlap. So basically the way where I will start getting to the mechanics right now, the way that it works is you want to cast your curses. Let me press my flask right here. So you're going to cast your curses in your primary curse right here, which is Temporal Chains for me. And then we also have Vixens right here that is triggering additional curses. So the way that it works is you have a less curse limit than the number of curses that you're casting. So it'll overwrite and remove the curses, which will be triggering the Impending Doom Doom Blast. So this is a support gem by default that will trigger a Doom Blast when a curse expires or if it gets removed from being overwritten. So the idea is that we are cursing with our temporal chains, and then it will cycle between Punishment, Enfeeble, and Despair right here. On the cooldown recovery timer, as it's cycling through these, it'll overlap and overwrite the other curses. And so when it's overwriting those curses, then it will remove the previous curse and trigger the Doom Blast. And the reason that we are able to keep this alive in a very strong way is with a Forbidden Shaco. So obviously the supply and demand of a build like this is very difficult. I've seen people find level 35 Impending Doom helmets for as low as 20 chaos, literally. 20 chaos up to 100 divines. It just depends on supply and demand. It's one of those things where you just gotta kind of wait out for it and look for it. You could do a level 21 gem in your body armor, but then way less damage. All right, anyway, let's get into the build and how it works, or how it looks rather. So the thing that I did with this build is I put it together in a way that really fits the defensive characteristics and comfort for what I like. So I wanted to solve for making sure that we are crit immune, which is for free with the mastery, but also stun immune, also as many less damage taken multipliers and modifiers that we could get onto the build. And as you can see, it is, in my opinion, pretty darn comfortable. The one downside here is that it is a Master Surgeon build, so you do have to press a Divine Life Flask right here. As Jung Roan says in his video as well, if you are willing to press the button more often or not use a fully legal setup, you could just have the flask triggering automatically. My finger, kind of hurts from pressing it. To be perfectly honest, my finger kind of hurts from pressing this every 5 seconds for the past couple weeks. So yeah, other thing that I did in this build is I did add Wither Totems. That's a thing that I see with a lot of poison builds, is they actually don't have 100% consistent uptime of Wither. And you'll notice that, I was able to ramp my damage very quickly there as I was fighting that boss because I have my Wither Totem set up. A lot of people will rely on only the Pathfinder Nature's Reprisal to get their Wither stacks up. But this is really inconsistent. 25% chance to inflict Wither for 2 seconds on hit. If we math this out, I'm not going to go into all. I actually don't know exactly how many hits that we're doing per second. If we go to POB, it does say that I have a trigger rate of 8.8 per second. I don't know how accurate that is, but even if we say I'm stacking 2 withers per second, if that's a 25% chance, I'm stacking 2 withers per second, and these withers only last 2 seconds, we are never getting close to our cap of 15 withers. And the only way that you're going to do that is something like Withering Step, in addition to having something like Wither Totems. A realistic thing that just doesn't show up in POB. I looked at a POB yesterday on stream where they linked me, like they had 15 Wither stacks, and I was like, where's your wither stacks coming from? And they're like, oh yeah, well I have Nature's Reprisal, but they were attacking like 3 times a second, right? And that's just not realistic for your actual wither stack. So anyway, that's the thing I wanted to solve for, was actually fix, like I saw like no one was using wither totems, and they were just, or even withering step, and they just said, oh, Nature's Reprisal, I got my wither stacks. And that's just not realistic. So yeah, what I would argue is that my version here is I'm trying to solve for practical situations, and actually have like, okay, I actually have wither stacks when I'm doing a boss. Okay, so anyway, that's what the T17 looks like. Let me finish clearing this map really quickly, and then I'll show you some boss showcases and stuff like that, and then we'll go into a little bit more of the mechanics. All right, and just to show a little bit about what this can do more defensively, we'll just do a regular Searing Exarch right here. Don't worry, I'll show you guys Uber in a second as well. This guy's running around my hideout having some fun for a little bit after a trade. So yeah, this is the regular fight. The big thing here is, we'll go into all the mechanics in a second, but we have a effective, very high max hit for our elemental damage. I'm just going to try to get him to trigger into the next phase. I'm not going to try to ramp my damage up. I'm just going to kind of poke at him a little bit. Come on, sec. Just let him phase right here. Come on. I don't know if I can tank this. Can I? Oh, okay. We can even tank that blast. Pretty cool. So, you know, demonstrating that, we can also run through these. Because we have a lot of effective... Oh my god, stop sending me invites. Because we have a lot of effective max hit, and we have a very, very high recovery rate of life and all that, we can just run through these meteors all day, and we don't care. The defensive characteristics of this build are just really, really nice. We have 100% of fire and cold taken as lightning and chaos, and then we have a very high max res and recovery rate. I'm not going to try to tank that again. That might have been a little lucky on that tank right there. It looked close. And then just to show you guys a little bit of the damage ramp, then we'll just start attacking, and it'll ramp up and get to a pretty good level and just kill him. All right, so that is what a regular Searing Exarch looks like. Let me trade this guy that was sending me a billion invites. Let's do Uber Searing Exarch. I'm actually not sure how this will go. Probably not going to be able to tank all the really big things, but should be able to do this relatively comfortably. So in a normal fight, we'll just sit here and we'll attack him normally and not try to do any goofy shenanigans. All right, let's try to kill the dog really quickly. Should be pretty comfortable for the balls too. Actually, I'm not sure if the Searing Exarch balls are worse or better than the non-Searing Exarch balls. Looks like it's fine. Looks like there's no difference. So, yes, Uber Searing Exarch. No problem whatsoever. I guess I can avoid those with Soul of the Lunaris. That's pretty cool. Actually didn't know that. So, we'll just stand here, face tank everything. Phase again. As you can see, the damage, you know, it's poison. And so the damage is not incredible. I have about a 4-second ramp or so on my damage. So if he phases within 4 seconds, I don't actually reach my my damage cap. But yeah, Uber Searing Exarch, pretty darn comfortable. Just wait it out. Probably not going to be able to tank this one. I'm going to... Whoa, oh, I did. Okay, there we go. All right, we can tank Uber Searing Exarch. Big slam. There we go. Well, that was an accident, but I don't have my headphones on, so I didn't hear the sound cue. I thought it went off already. I think this is a... There we go. A lucky accident. Good demonstration of Uber Searing Exarch. All right. So like I said, takes about 4 seconds to ramp our damage, so that can take a little bit. And yeah, so that was an Uber fight, and T17 Uber fight, all of that. And in fact, I will show you a tier 16 with a little bit of a variation, just to show you guys what I like to do to kind of map really, really quickly. So let me set that up really quick. All right, so here's a T16 strand, and the thing that I like to do is, because as you can see, we are very, very, very tanky. And we don't need to be that tanky in a tier 16. So actually what I do is I swap out Flesh and Stone with Herald of Ash. It does work when we kill the monsters. Herald of Ash will do its burning damage because we have so much increased damage in general. Well, we don't have that much, but we have increased damage over time. Profane, and we have a Profane Bloom effect from Unspeakable Gifts right here. This will all work with Herald of Ash and actually give us pretty darn good explosions on the screen. And we have Poison Prolif and everything as well because we're a Pathfinder. Also, I have the Haunted by Tormented Spirits on the wand. So we do run really fast. Let me turn that on real quick. So we do run really fast, and that's a big thing that I went for, is I wanted really good quality of life, speed, being able to blast maps at absolute warp speed as quickly as possible. And it, yeah, feels really good. Huge prolif and explosions. Not godlike damage, but, enough damage to make Uber bosses and T17s very comfortable. You don't need more damage than that. Although, I guess, in modern PoE, if you want to do ghosted, titanic, insane rogue exiles, that's probably like the actual end game in PoE right now. Interesting ring. That's actually like the giga end game in PoE right now. I don't think this build's not really perfectly tuned for that, and boss is right there, and boss is dead. So that's a tier 16 map that we can do really, really quickly. So hopefully that covers all the bases for showing all of the content in the game that is relevant. Can do Simulacrum. It can delve like relatively deep. It's not like a deep delver. It's just a well-rounded build that can do most stuff in the game very, very comfortably. So, I just want to get that all out of the way because there's always questions. Can the build do X or Y? And generally in this situation, the answer will be yes. So let's get to the fun part, particularly when talking about builds, and that is the unique decisions, like A of all how it works, and then B of all the unique decisions that I made when putting this build together. Impending Doom on a Pathfinder has been around, and on an Occultist that was more popular in the past, has been around for a long time now, but this is the modern version, and then I made some changes here to fit what I think makes it a better build, at least to me. I think it makes it better and more fun for my preferences. Let's get into it. Let's start going down the line. What we're doing is we are casting Temporal Chains here with Awakened Spell Cascade, and then the Vixens is also casting all of our additional curses. We cast our Temporal Chains, then the Vixens cast the other curses on top of that. That will remove the curses, and then it will trigger the Impending Doom Blast, and we want to cast faster. You can see that there's a cooldown on Vixen's Entrapment, and also Impending Doom, I think, also has a built-in cooldown. So by stacking more cooldown recovery rate, we are able to do and cast speed, we're able to do this faster and faster and faster. And then we go for Chance to Poison. It is doing chaos damage, so we're poisoning with that chaos damage, and that's the general idea. And we're just stacking as much chaos damage over time that we can, as well as cast speed, increased chaos damage, and all that across the board. The big thing that caused people to say that Impending Doom was dead a couple leagues ago was when they changed the way that AoE scales, or rather just the overlap scale on Awakened Spell Cascade. If I have a lot less AoE, let me see if there's an easy way for me to remove some area of effect. Yeah, I can drop these 3 points right here. So we're actually going to drop these 3 points and these 2 points. You'll see these danglers. This is actually on purpose. Actually, before I drop those, I want to show you guys what it looks like before. We don't know if this is like exactly accurate. It's just the numbers that people talk around. Is you want a radius of at least 4.8 to get the perfect overlap right here. So that's your goal, is you want to go for a 4.8 radius. You want to see these circles overlapping with each other. So let's see if I can try to capture that. That's a pretty good capture right there. So you'll notice that all of the curses that are being triggered are overlapping. You'll see that like this, and you'll see this and this. And so right where I click, you'll see a really big overlap, and we get, because we have these really big circles right here, right? And by scaling enough AoE, that we get all of the overlaps, and then in the middle, that is where the curses are overlapping and removing each other. Now, you do have a single overlap in each of the big circles as well, so that's why we still are doing damage on the edges. So you'll notice that even if I'm casting over here, the monsters will die back here, even though there isn't the complete overlap. So, even over here, we're getting 2 overlaps, but in the center, we're actually getting a bunch of overlaps, and that's actually way, way more poisons that are stacking. You can clear the whole screen, but your damage center will be where your mouse cursor is, and that's where all the curses are overlapping and removing it. Because of the way that we are casting curses, we actually don't want more curse limit. We want to leave it actually at a -1 curse limit, because that'll remove it more aggressively. For example, a problem that happens with the wand enchant right here is you get haunted by a random tormented spirit. I just wanted to use this enchant. This enchant is not mandatory. It is kind of not good for the build, actually, but it's just fun for running really, really fast. So sometimes you get a random spirit. You'll see that I'm always ghosted. You'll get a random spirit that will give you +1 curse. And that's why I actually have an amulet swap that doesn't have +1 curse on it. Because if I am in a map where I have +1 curse from the ghost, then my build doesn't work anymore. That's a thing that can happen, just a warning right there. That is kind of the core functionality. I don't know if there's like a downside to having too big of a radius. It feels fine to me. So my temporal change is actually 4.9 meters right here, and my my Vixen curses are actually 5.2. I think I might be able to drop a couple points and keep it down to 4.8. So when you see these two circles kind of separated, that's how you know that you're not getting the perfect overlap anymore, right? So these being so pushed away, that means that it's not overlapping and you actually have like a real big dead spot in the middle, right? You can see right here, these two lines, they're not touching each other. And so you have a dead spot, so you're actually not getting max damage. Now, if you're fighting like Kitava or something, it doesn't matter. A very large boss, doesn't matter whatsoever. You're gonna get the full overlap, or you're fighting the, you know, the meatball guy, the unending hunger, whatever dude. For any smaller monster, if you wanna get all of the overlaps, you really need to hit that 4.8 breakpoint. That's what everyone says. I tested it, and 4.8 really is where you see that overlap. It looks like a nice circular basketball instead of this weird oblong shape. And you can tell the difference, and you can feel the difference when you're doing bosses. Let's go into what I think is the most interesting thing about this is the defensive layers. So if you saw my Catswell channeling Poison Soulrun build from last league, this is very similar, but it has one very key difference. So what I did is I went for 100% of Fizz taken as just element, and we did that to basically solve for physical damage mitigation. The Fizz max hit on that build was very high. This is a different setup that's been around for a while, but it's really, really cool. So what we want to do is stack 90% lightning resistance, and then we are converting 40% of cold and fire to lightning right here. And then we want on a Watcher's Eye, very specifically, you don't want higher, it actually goes to 20, but we want very specifically 10% of fire and cold taken as lightning while affected by period of lightning. So that allows us to ignore half of fire and cold. And then in addition, we are running our classic Divine Flesh for the other 50% taken as chaos damage. And so we are just stacking max lightning and max chaos resistance right there. And that is our primary defensive layer for all elemental and chaos damage. And then to solve for physical damage, we're running a Doppelganger's Guise for 40% less physical damage taken while sane. We always want to be sane. We don't want to go insane. That solves for a very large percentage of it already. And then what I'm doing to kind of make the rest of our physical max hit a lot better is I am running Flesh and Stone. So as long as they're somewhat near us, we're actually taking 20% less damage from them. I think roughly when they're within the circle, I think they said it's like 1.5 meters away is the max, and then it'll scale to 0 at the outside of the radius. So that's why if you see me fight a boss, I do try to be relatively close to them. We take less damage when we're actually touching them. That also allows us to take advantage of our Arctic Armor, which is an additional 22% less physical damage taken while stationary. When we're casting, we're always stationary. So we get a 20% and then another 22% right here. And then on top of that, we got Petrified Blood. We have a very strong Progenesis because we're a Flask Finder. And with all of that less damage taken, we actually still end up with a very respectable 31,300 Fizz max hit. That is conditional, assuming I'm standing still and all of that. But I think that's okay. Oh, also in addition, we are using the Mastery for less physical damage taken while on full energy shield, so 28k Fizz max hit without that. But you'll notice that when we're using the Sorrow of the Divine, my ES is at max most of the time. Like, before I'm done casting my first spell, it's already back at max. If I even take one fraction of a second to not be always casting, you know, if I'm running around or anything, I am taking 10% less physical damage taken from that Mastery. I actually think that Mastery is really, really good. The only time it's going down is like while I'm actively casting. And even half that time, it's still capped out. I think that's a really good Mastery to use. That's the defensive layers that I have right here. No spell suppression. I'm not scaling block or anything like that. If you want to go more generally hardcore oriented, I do recommend looking into the Svalin version that Jung Roan did, but I don't think it's necessary. I think it's, if you're in softcore, I think it's a little overkill. It's a lot of additional effort to go for the spell suppression and all that. And as you saw, I could just run through all the Searing Exarch balls and face tank his slam and all that, and T17s are fine. I think it's totally fine in softcore. If you're in hardcore, you know, you do want an EHP higher than 110k, but in softcore, I very, very rarely die unless I click like insanely hard altars. I don't read the map mods or something like that. So that's the defensive layers. In terms of ailments and all that, to solve for those, this is where the fun stuff came in. And this is what I had a lot of fun doing, kind of putting this build together. I hate running Purity of Elements. It's fine, really fits in some builds. I used it in my Castle Channeling build last league, but I want to do everything I can to not run Purity of Elements. And then I really, really hate running Soul of the Brine King. Getting stunned every 2 seconds feels awful. You don't want that. And because we have a lower life pool, we actually can get stunned a good amount of times, and you're just running around getting mini stunned all the time. And you can use Unstoppable Force and all that if you want to, but we are very, very tight on our jewel sockets. So I wasn't able to fit Unstoppable Force into the build anyway. And we actually have a pretty good access to Chance to Avoid Stunned built into the build already as a ranger. She has a pretty good access to it. So I wanted to do that for dealing with stun. For dealing with chill, I have 100% chance to avoid being chilled on my boots. For phasing, I actually crafted my boots with an abyssal socket. This gives me 30% chance to avoid being stunned right here, as well as 8% chance to gain phasing on kill. Because we actually didn't have too much socket pressure. An abyssal jewel right here felt really good. And then to continue solving the stun, we have 30% stun right here. We have 28% chance to avoid being stunned right here. And then I used avoid being stunned tattoos to finish out the rest of that 50%. That's how we avoid stun entirely. We are chill immune right here. We're running Arctic armor, so we are freeze immune. I'm ignoring ignite entirely because we just recover so much life per second. That's not a problem. I'm recovering 2,600 life per second because we are Master Surgeon with a Divine Life Flask right here. Like I said earlier, an Eternal Life Flask is better, but you got to press that like every 2.5 seconds. And ain't nobody want to do that. That's just, it feels really bad unless you have alternative means to keep your flask up. But I can tell you, my finger does not feel good from pressing out. Just warning if you've never played Divine Surgeon, or not Divine Surgeon, but Master Surgeon. All right, hold on, quick real sale here. We gotta keep the sales open while we're recording. I think that's enough high level theory and kind of talking around a lot of how this works in general. But let's get into a lot of the specifics about how this works. First off, this is the core of kind of what enables you to do any of this. Like I said, the real important thing is to hit that 4.8 radius breakpoint, and this is a delve mod. I believe it's a drop-only delve mod. Ideally, you can get this fractured. A very clever thing that Jung Roan did in his version was he mirrored it, and he used he used the reflecting mist to make it more strong. And I think he got it to like 60-something% increased area effect. But I just have a basic version right here that is fractured, which allowed me to craft something, that I am really happy about. I went for a fractured area of effect of hex skills on the ring. You will end up using a Calandra's Touch to mirror it because this is not very expensive right now. Yeah, only 6 divines to mirror the ring. So you buy one of these, and then I crafted it with Essence of Delirium for the dot multi until I hit cast speed. And then I think I did Self-Exist Can't Be Changed, Reforged Life. Got lucky. I think I hit tier 1 life on like the first or second try. This is basically a best in slot ring for the build. We want cast speed to just cast even quicker, and then dot multi area of effect. We're stacking as much area of effect as possible. You want to hit that 4.8 radius breakpoint. I'm just going to keep on hammering that home. I also went for a socketed ring, which relieves a lot of socket pressure, opens up the ability to use this abyssal socket. Sorry, and then stepping back, the real core, like I said earlier, is getting an Impending Doom helmet. You can check in POB. This is going to be the hardest part. It's one of those things where, hey, I want to make a video about this cool build, but then, the supply can be kind of awkward. So what you want to do is search for a Shaco, and then you type in Impending Doom. It's going to be the first one. Let's say search for at least level 32. The prices can range really greatly right here. So if we go into POB, you'll see that I'm at 27 million DPS. If I change my helmet to fit, let's say level 32, what does that do to my damage? So if I change it to a level 32 Impending Doom, I go from 27 to 23 million DPS. A pretty big drop, but still a respectable amount of damage. You'll still be able to do everything in the game that you need to do. Yeah, that's just the range right there. I probably wouldn't go below 32. I think that should be the lowest that you should go. Looks like maybe you get lucky for 5 divines, you could buy a level 32. Looks like the average price for a level 32 is more closer to 15 to 20 divines, but there's a bunch of them. What I will say is be very careful. For the second gem, the other socketed support, some of these can brick the build. There's almost nothing that works. So the way that this works is Temporal Chains is our spell that they are being linked to. So you have to be careful and think, like mine says Deadly Ailments on it. I actually forgot for a second when I bought this. I think I overpaid. I know I overpaid for this helmet. Deadly Ailments does nothing. Deadly Ailments does not link to Temporal Chains. Because Impending Doom is another socketed support, it's not even a gem, right? It's a support that links to Temporal Chains. this Deadly Ailments does not link to Temporal Chains. The Impending Doom and Deadly Ailments don't link together. That does absolutely nothing, and that's actually why I have Awakened Deadly Ailments right here, because this one does nothing. The ideal one is if you can get Impending Doom with increased area of effect, then you're really, really happy, because that really relieves a lot of pressure on your increased area effect. And you could probably drop all of these passive points. Just be very careful about the support gems that you're going for. There's very, very few that work. I think increased area effect is by far the best in slot. Be aware of ones that could brick the build, like Spell Totem. That would be really bad. What you want to do is you want to go here. You can mouse over the support gem and see that damage on full life support does not link to Temporal Chains. And so I don't know if this person's trying to kind of scam people a little bit or whatever. They think it's worth that much. I would definitely not pay any more than 100 divines. I think that's crazy. Even 100 is a little on the high side. All right, I just want to make that really clear because it's very, very important. For the rest of the gear, let's talk about the wand. The wand in the room. So what I did is I went for the Haunted by Tormented Spirits. The thing is, you can hit a cap on your cast speed. So you'll see with my build right here, the big thing here is with the Haunted by Tormented Spirits, you actually have 35% increased cast speed. And you'll see a warning will pop up right here. And it'll say you have, let me move myself over, you have too much cast speed or too little cooldown reduction to effectively use Vixen's Curse Replacement. You do have to be really careful about this. So I'm getting more damage from the Frenzy charges, but it's not hitting the breakpoint exactly properly, but it feels like I'm doing more damage anyway, so I kept the Frenzy charges. I actually don't know what's correct here, but I don't have the Frenzy charges when I'm bossing, so it doesn't really affect me. Like when I'm actually fighting a boss, I don't have Frenzy charges, and this is actually what it looks like. This is from the Ghost Wand, is the 35% cast speed. So what this does is it gives me 35% cast, move, and attack speed by default, and then there will be an additional spirit that haunts me, a random spirit rather. That's just like the default, what a spirit gives you, and then which spirit haunts you, it'll give you a random thing. Sometimes it can give you +1 curse, which I said earlier is bad for the build. Get my +1 curse actually from my amulet right here. When I notice that I'm not doing any damage because I have too many curses, I actually swap out this amulet. I actually have to drop the Blood Rage because it's too high level, too much dexterity. I swap out my amulet right here so I don't have that +1 curse because the ghost is giving me +1 curse. Just to get that across, there's a little nuance here. Also, the wand enchant costs over 100 divines. It's a bunch of time and power runes. It only is being used for the attack and movement speed. Because what you can do is go for a profane wand instead that gives you cast speed on the implicit. That's actually better. You don't have to worry about the conditional +1 curse that is kind of bricking your build. All you lose is the 35% attack and movement speed. I wanted 35% attack and movement speed. That's why I went for it. But if you just go for a profane wand, that'll also give you a little headroom for increased cast speed that you don't have to worry about the warning that you get from PoB. Like if I turn on the frenzy charges, like I get that warning. But what you want to do to craft this is a very, very easy craft, easy craft, is you want to use a fractured dot multi wand, ideally a profane wand if you're not going for the enchant. And then you craft it with Deafening Essence of Misery to get 32% increased cast speed until you hit cast damage over time multiplier. Would love to go for tier 1 dot multi, but we ended up with tier 2 and I was okay with that. Then you do Suffixes Can't Be Changed, Veiled Orb, craft increased physical damage to block, and then try to unveil increased chaos damage, craft dot multi, or craft damage over time, and then you're done with your wand. There is not really another implicit that I could get on this wand or prefix that I would go for, besides +1 all gems. So I'm not even bothering to exalt that. I'm just living with my 5 mod wand. I think it looks kind of nice, actually. So that's my wand right there. It's good damage, good cast speed. And since we don't care about gem levels, because all of our damage comes from the Impending Doom, it actually kind of makes it easier. We don't care about gem levels at all. Doppelgangers, guys, like I said, really good for our defenses. Also, regenerating 10% of life when hit is really nice. Stacks incredibly well with the Petrified Blood and Progenesis. You really want the +1 level socketed gems. This allows me to have a level 5 Enlighten from a level 4 and reserve all of my auras. Petrified Blood, Flesh and Stone, Purity of Lightning, Malevolence, and Arctic Armor. We can reserve all of those with just the investment into Influence and Charisma by having a level 5 Enlighten here, which is really nice. Like I said earlier, Wither with multiple totems and spell totem support, I really think people are deluding themselves into thinking that they can self-sustain 15 Wither stacks in any realistic situation by just casting without any other source of Wither. Even with Withering Step, I think that only gives you 8 stacks or so. With Enhanced, you can get more, but only getting 8 stacks from Withering Step and then having to worry about pressing that Withering Step, really annoying, really unrealistic, honestly. And the only way I think you're going to be keeping your wither stacks high is with wither. I also noticed that some people are using Vol Blight to increase the increased damage taken. If you want to press that button, you can add in Vol Blight as well for some more paper DPS, but I don't think that's very realistic or going to be a very high uptime. So I didn't bother putting Vol Blight in the build. I have Steel Skin on automation support with more duration. I want to show you guys. I actually think this is really, really good for, you could do cast and damage taken if you wanted to, but due to the way this build works is I'm not scaling into evasion. I'm not scaling into block or anything like that. I'm taking the hits on the chin, which, is not ideal. I would like to, if I could run Grace, I think that would be pretty cool. But we're really, really tight here. And I didn't want to drop Malevolence. If you're willing to drop the damage, you could run Grace instead, and that would be huge for your defenses. But with the automation support on the more duration and the Steel Skin, I actually think this is legitimately really good. If you look at the uptime of my Steel Skin, let's just get these guys to stop spamming those tornadoes. You'll notice that my Steel Skin is actually up a majority of the time. It actually has like a 2/3 uptime. So it has a cooldown of 2.56 seconds with a buff lasting 3.69 seconds. So, about a 2/3 uptime of the Steel Skin. Because we're always going to be taking a lot of hits coming in, I would like to keep that cooldown as low as possible with the highest uptime possible. And because we have Petrified Blood, because we have Progenesis, and 2,600 life regen per second, just getting that conditional, 2,209 damage taken. I just really want to call that out, where it's basically like getting 1,600 more max life on the build for a realistic scenario. Like, this is simulating what actually happens in real life instead of just focusing on POB numbers. And with that uptime, I think it is the correct call for your average defenses for what you're going to experience in the real world. You could argue if you're more bossing focused, cast on damage taken is better, but I really think if you're mapping and you're blasting through packs as quickly as possible, I'd rather have the largest Steel Skin possible instead of a smaller one that's up only when I take a hit. But the thing is, if I'm mapping, I'm taking every hit because I'm not evading. I just really want to make that clear, like why I made that decision, because it's a big thing that there's a lot of discussion. I've heard people saying like, oh, automation is bad, it's stupid, etc. And it can be, like, if you're, a big evasion build, if you have 95% evasion, then cast from damage taken is just always better, right? Because you want it when you do get a hit. But if you're not evading and every hit is going to hit you as you're blasting through a map, I'd rather have a very large Steel Skin, very large, mitigating as much damage as possible. Anyway, with the helmet, we have Temporal Chains, Deadly Ailments, Spell Cascade, Unbound Ailments. In the wand, we have Shield Charge, Faster Attacks, Blood Rage right here. So Blood Rage was Jung Ron's idea. I really like this. It just gives us Frenzy Charges on kill and some more attack speed so we can get around even faster in our maps, which is what we want. We're going to go really, really fast. So Blood Rage is right there, right? We don't get the Frenzy Charges while we're bossing, so I actually have that turned off in the POB, but those are up while we're mapping for more damage. And then in the gloves, this is actually very specific. We have Punishment first, then Enfeeble, Despair, and Awaken Spell Cascade. The way that it works is Punishment will be applied first. It'll actually apply them in order. And the curse that you see first is actually the one that gets removed and doesn't linger. So I am able to keep 3 curses on the enemy, but Punishment, right? I have +1 curse here on the Vixen's Entrapment. So I have a total of 3 curses that I can apply. And Punishment right here will be the one that gets removed, and it's never on the enemy. So Punishment is just for looks. I could put any curse here. I could put Ellie Weakness or whatever. This does nothing. So Punishment here actually does nothing. They are not taking the damage from Punishment. It is just there for looks. In fact, it'd be kind of fun to just put in like Ellie Weakness or something like that for looks. And I can demonstrate that really quickly. We'll go to just a random little mini boss right here, our favorite little meatball boy, to show you guys what that looks like. Yeah, this is going to be one of those long videos where I just explain everything. This is what I like to do, is just ramble. And I really want to just give you guys my full understanding of the build. The way that works, I'm going to put the Wither Totems down. And if I just cast on him, you'll notice that sometimes there's only 2 curses, like the way that it removes. But most of the time, he'll have 3 curses on him. And you'll see Enfeeble, Temp Chains, and Despair right there. But you will never, ever see Punishment. But generally, you'll see 2, sometimes 3 curses. And it looks like that. So Punishment just does not apply. And yeah, let me get the Wither Totems back down, ramp up my poison, and do our damage. So that is all of the gear and all of the gems. For the flasks, Progenesis, best flask in the game, duh. Topaz Flask, right? Because we are stacking our lightning res, we want our 90 lightning res all the time. We're running a Topaz Flask. I like use when charges reach full. It means I never have to press my flask at the beginning of the map, even though it's technically a little less efficient. I just make sure I have enough flask recovery that I always have 100% uptime. And then I have 65% reduced effective curses on me. And with the 60%, I think I have 60 or so increased flask effect, 65% increased flask effect. I am actually 100% curse immune with this flask. So curses done with, stun done with, chill and freeze are done with. I like to just check all those boxes, make sure that the build is well-rounded. Replica Sorrow the Divine, this gives us the Eldritch Battery, so we don't have to worry about our mana whatsoever. Divine Life Flask, you want to specifically roll increased amount recovered with reduced recovery rate on that prefix. And then I have this one for immunity to bleeding and corrupted blood. Because we're recovering so much life per second, and because we're plussing our flask every 5 seconds, this is actually a very consistent way to not worry about bleeding and corrupted blood. And also Steel Skin is periodically removing the bleed in addition to that. So we don't have to worry about bleed or corrupted blood like that. And then just a very, very fast Quicksilver Flask. It doesn't have 100% uptime, but it has a pretty high uptime. It's maybe like an 80, 85, 90% uptime, which is good enough. And then while you're mapping, it's 100%. Like I said, we just want to go really, really fast. Also, if you go for a Profane Wand and you are capping your cast speed that way, you can just craft for your enchant increased cast speed. So that'll give you 24% increased cast speed on your wand by default, which is very close to the Tormented Spirits already. And then my proudest thing, I guess you could say, that I did for this build is I went for a double corrupted amulet. You can just find these. The supply is very low and random, but you can search for a corrupted amulet that already has +1 all res, because we want to go for that max lightning res as well as +1 curse. And then you could just search for res, life, whatever you want to look for, stats, and then you can build the rest of the build around it. So this is very similar to the one that I have. It's got all attributes, got strength and intelligence. This is actually arguably better than my amulet. I'm tempted to buy this, actually. It's got really good stats on it. Big thing about this build is solving for all of your attributes, because we use a lot of tattoos. You want as much attributes as possible on the build, and then a little bit of lightning res. I bought this for like, I don't know, 6, 7 divines or something like that, because it just fit the build very, very nicely. By getting the +1 curse here, it actually saves us a couple passive points. Ideally, I don't take any of these, but saves us a bunch of passive points into going into Whispers of Doom. And then we don't have to worry about that whatsoever. Arguably, you could go for a crazy amulet that has all sorts of, dot multi and increased chaos damage and all that. I thought this was a kind of a fun way to build around saving a couple passive points, as well as getting us more comfortably at that 90% lightning res defensive breakpoint right there. So, and then by getting Toxic Strikes on the craft, on the enchant, this saves me some chance to poison as well, which saves me an additional passive point that I don't have to worry about on the passive tree. So that's kind of what the amulet's here for, is solving attributes as well as max res, curse, and chance to poison with the enchant, which I thought was just like a really fun way to solve that. So that is all of the gear. That's all of the gems. Because of the Font of Thunder, we're going to start talking about the tattoos now. Font of Thunder, like I said earlier, it's how we solve the cold and fire. It has plus 50% chance to be shocked. We actually really, with the 90 lightning res, it's like not that big of a deal for the increased damage taken, but we really don't want to be shocked. And so what I'm doing is I'm leveraging tattoos quite a bit here. So I am using reduced effective shock tattoos right here to solve for the shock. So I am using Soul of Garukhan for 60%, and then an additional 4 tattoos right here for 100% reduced effective shock on me. You can be shocked at 0%, so if something needs to affect you while you're shocked, I guess that can happen, but we are effectively shock immune with that. So that's how I wanted to solve that ailment, right? So everything except for Ignite and the alternate ailments we have solved here. And then for a very important thing for your Doom Blast to pay attention to is make sure that chance to poison says 100%. And so we're doing that by using Toxic Strikes as well as a few tattoos right here. Depending on where you choose your passive points, right? We go to chance to poison with spells right here. Depending on which passive points that you choose, you could go into more or less chance to poison. Like if you want to, you could go for 2 more tattoos and then take these 2 dot multi instead of this node in the middle. There's a lot of flexibility that you can do here based on how you end up putting the build together. And those are things that you just really got to pay close attention to. I do have a little bit of flask effect duration. I just wanted to make sure that I have as much uptime as possible of my build. So you want 100% chance to avoid being stunned. You just want to hit that breakpoint. And then the rest of the dexterity tattoos, you can fill those out with flask effect duration, which will make it much more comfortable to just hit that 100% uptime of all your flasks. And as you saw, I'm like very close to 100% on my Quicksilver. It's like, I don't know, it's like 90, 95%, which I think is pretty good. Kind of the consequence of that is dealing with attributes. Like I said, we need as much attributes as possible. I would love a high tier attribute on my amulet. I actually very much might buy that amulet that I showed a few minutes ago, because we're using the tattoos and we are taking up a lot of int tattoos. We are using a lot of R, G, and B gems. And so we're going to need about 160 of all of our stats to hit all of our breakpoints right there, which can be really tough. A thing that I'm doing is actually paying very close attention to trying to get T1 attributes, T1, T2 attributes on my cluster jewels right here. And this actually ends up, right? This is, normally you don't see this, right? But I am very purposely taking this dummy node in the middle to give me 15 intelligence on this cluster jewel. Now you could say, yeah, you could take one of these small points or something like that, but I get additional benefit, right? I get the 12% increased chaos damage as well. So that, in addition to one right here, gives me increased flask effect duration as well as chaos res. You know, I could drop those 2 points and take one small node. I totally understand that. I thought this was kind of a fun way to get some additional benefit out of it and solve for the intelligence. Next up is the megalomania question. Megalomaniacs they're all unique, they're strange, and finding one that fits your build. Like, I got one that I was really, really happy to hit. I bought this for 20 chaos. It was just out of the blue. I saw that. I jumped right on it. You don't know what people are actually looking for. All I did was search for a megalomaniac with unspeakable gifts. I wanted that profane bloom explodey feel. And I found one that also had peak vigor with increased life recovery from flask, huge for us, as well as insulated, 20% lightning res and +1 max lightning res. Really, really good for our build, of course. You got to find these deals and then you can build around everything else. That is a flexible thing. The big thing that we're going to be searching for is looking for Born of Chaos. As you can see here, I don't even have one that has a third usable node. As far as I can tell, I've been searching every day. There is not a megalomaniac that has Born of Chaos, Brood for Potency, and a good third node that's worth buying right now for the build. But you can just get these two for sure. There's a bunch that have just these two, which is fine. So that's just a problem-solving thing that you'll have to do. We have 1 Septic Spells here for Chance to Poison, and then Circling Oblivion's really good, Duration of Ailments. So last up is buying the Glorious Vanity. I've shown this a bunch of videos. I don't think I have a specific video for it. Let me look. Okay, good. I guess I did make a video showing how to do this. There is a website that you can go to that I'll link this video below. It's called Maximize Your Build's Tattoo Coverage, but it shows you how to search for finding the correct timeless jewel for your build. You'll notice that I get really nice nodes right here. So I have some life right here. This is normally a mana mastery, but we have the 12% mana mastery right there. The big thing is it has to be in the name of Zabaqua, but how do you find how many of the sacrificed Vol are there for Zabaqua? Zabaqua gives you Divine Flesh, but what that number is, it will randomly jumble everything up, or not randomly, but as per an algorithm. And you can use the technique in that website that I linked below, or that I will link below, and it'll show you how to search for something that you care about. So things that you care about. Life is great. You can get max chaos res. I don't know if there's max lightning res. I know there's max fire, but you don't care about that. Just like click through and try to find stuff that looks good for the build. Additional physical damage reduction is also really, really good. So these are all ones that you want to go for that are great for the build. And yeah, I actually haven't put too much effort into searching for one for myself. But that is it. That is the build. I am absolutely in love with this build, particularly the way that I was able to solve for a lot of the problems that I found when I originally put this together. With all of this stuff here fitting the way that I like to build to play, it feels really good. It's also kind of reminiscent of Bane back in the day. You know, I'm casting this Curse AoE with some Profane Bloom Explodey, and the defensive layers are, for my tastes, really, really good. And I find that the offense is more than sufficient to do everything that I want to do in the game. Super happy and in love with this build, to the point where this might actually be my end game build of the league. If I get really crazy, I might start double corrupting Forbidden Shakos with level 35 Impending Doom. There's very little benefit to that, but it might be a fun gamble. That's what I've ended up with. I love this build. You know, as long as it survives like this, it's still really, really good. I totally understand why people loved it a couple leagues ago, and I just want to share with you guys and how I put it together this time. So thanks for watching. You guys have been great if you made it this far. I've been rambling for 1 hour and 10 minutes. Hopefully I can cut that down to a little bit less than this. Thanks for watching. We're going to get ready for the stream in a little bit. Well, it's going to take a while to edit this video, and then we'll do some gambles and double creps and try to push this build to the next level. See you soon. Bye.